making plays. They're constantly looking for opportunities to win against their opponents, and it's paying off for them. So it's really exciting play.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing now, the second game has started up. These guys are just, we're going to see what kind of research they go for. TPA Assassins, you look at the bans out, these look rather similar. Jarvan the Fourth, again, dropped out here. Anivia, Rengar, I haven't seen many games with him played here. I mean, he's one of the top 10 champions of this tournament, but he's been banned out a whole heck of a lot. And we see basically identically mirrored bans, and I can't blame SGS. I mean, removing the Anivia and Orianna from toys makes so much sense. Rengar, I get it. He's a great initiator as well, and just a great overall fighter. And they have Diana available now.
That top Rengar seems to fit really well with Stanley's style. Particularly if he went a teleport, which we've seen a lot recently, can be just an incredibly powerful lane, and then you leave for team fights, you initiate and whatnot. And Stanley, he likes controlling his lane, just kind of passive. He doesn't look to fight in his lane usually. He doesn't usually look to exchange with his lane opponent, but then he'll leave the lane and look to win fights. And Rengar is perfect at doing that.
Yeah, he's just super mobile. He can make a lot of things happen. Singapore Sentinels, though, they're taking a lot of time trying to come up with this pick here.
I think they're wondering whether or not
does
they
he not know how to spell Diana?
I
mean, the thing is, they saw they got wrecked by it, right? They saw that toys wrecked them with Diana. They're I guess Lulu's up there as a top pick here, really, but I mean, they got completely hurt by that.
Oh, wow.
This is supremely confident. They're rushing Vayne.
Yeah, and so just
Diana Lulu?
don't allow Bebe to play it, but they feel that their only hope against TPA is if they get that really strong AD carry, it seems. But it's interesting. They've been running a lot of different AD carries recently. I know Urgot's been a big favorite of theirs, and he's very strong early on in the game. But, Vayne, vastly superior in team fights. And then if they picked Urgot, then, there's always the threat that Bebe picks Vayne, and Vayne just, wrecks Urgot in that bottom lane.
But I don't know. I'm very confused by that, just because.
There's so many strong picks open.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, you've got Zyra, you've got my mind is not comprehending how they've not grabbed Diana yet, because it's defined so many teams. You saw again, Azebu Blazers TSM. The second TSM finished banning, Diana was super fast insta lock. They were they banned Diana to enter.
Yeah.
But no, TPA Assassins are happy to pick very, very different champions here. Olaf has been hotly contested, I should say. That's been given to TPA Assassins this time.
They're happy to have that pick. That's going to be huge for Stanley. Ooh. And then, also the Zyra tends to be a really strong support against that Vayne. You can shut down Vayne in lane, but then also in team fights, you just AoE ult, and it's just so massive. It either forces Vayne way out of the fight where she's not dealing damage, or it puts her in a situation where you're going to burst her down.
And that was actually one of the difficulties for TPA Assassins against Azubu Frost at the World Finals, was you're Vayne and you're fighting up against a Karthus, and he's going to just deal damage to you. You have to kill him first, and then immediately run backwards, hope you're not low enough to drop to a Requiem, and that's your only game plan once he gets real items. And again, the same kind of possibilities here, whether it's I would guess support Zyra more so than mid Zyra, but we'll see. I remember actually that Xpeka used mid Zyra to beat out Diana, and that actually then makes more sense to me as sort of a suggested counterpick here, where SGS, they grab Vayne and then TPA Assassins is cool, and they're happy to sit there and grab Zyra, say, well, if you pick Diana, you lose lane. But they can still throw it on support and then pick Diana last.
But this is interesting. They're actually going with Elise in that top lane. So I thought that they would actually give Stanley Olaf, because we've seen in the past it's one of his strongest champions. And then Bebe moving into the MF. So that lane is just designed to bully out Vayne. And, Ezreal is one of Bebe's strongest champions. We saw earlier in the tournament. He actually had a pentakill on Ezreal. But that's going to be a really aggressive lane. And then Elise on Stanley. Elise has been a really interesting top lane, and it has the roaming potential. You leave that lane, and then you join in with fights. So it's very strong in those early skirmishes. But going against Kha'Zix potentially, or no, Kha'Zix is going to be in the jungle. They actually played Kha'Zix against TPA in the Garena Premier League finals, and it didn't really work out for them in that top lane. It was versus Rengar, but on Stanley. But I don't know. We'll see how they use them here.
What I really like what TPA Assassins just did here is, again, you assume the Zyra lane beats out Lux. They haven't picked their 5th pick.
Yeah.
So they could pick a mid or a support here and throw Zyra in either lane.
That's true.
I don't want the Champions League to be about Zyra, but it's been in 99% of the games here. Yeah, they could go Lulu Misfortune and just poke all day.
Such a bully lane.
I'm actually afraid of that though, because I don't think they all in all that well. Like Blitzcrank, if he pulls anything, no matter who he pulls, that person's going to take a lot of damage. And it's not super easy to counteract that. The Zyra, though, is a much better actual fighter with the plants. You can really lock up Vayne, and again, that area of effect. And in fact, the Karthus, again, it's a great pick against Vayne because you'll just start hurting her really badly in fights. And you look at that full roster, and you've got a great area of effect team with Bullet Time, Karthus in general, Stranglethorns coming in from Zyra, and then you've got really good sort of just Olaf and Elise being annoying. This is a really nice team from TPA Assassins. They allowed themselves to pick whatever lane they wanted. Lux, not being a lane bully, gives them free time to grab Karthus and just farm like mad and be just super, super annoying. Yeah,
and I'm kind of actually surprised that they went with the MF as opposed to the Ezreal. But MF definitely has that really strong early game, and then the AoE as well. So, scales with damage without needing those items. So that's definitely huge, as opposed to Ezreal, who really needs to get deep in his build. But that could be kind of scary, going against the Kazakhs and, Darius and Lux, all those champions, and Blitzcrank, all these champions that later on in the game could just insta-kill Bebe and put TPA at a massive disadvantage in some of those fights. That could be a really scary situation for them. But it's going to be interesting to see how Kazakhs does. I actually haven't seen Kazakhs in the jungle, but with his leap, it's such long range. You can really put yourself in a nice situation to burst people down.
Well, one thing that's going to go well for him, though, is he can max Void Spike, crush out all the smaller monsters, and then he gets the isolated Q for a whole heck of a lot of damage, and he can break things down really, really quickly. And the cool thing is, this looks so much like Fnatic's lineup against them, right? They've got the Blitzcrank, they've got the 2 resets, they've got the Vayne in there.
Yeah.
Like, this is, and they've even got teleport on mid from Chowie. Like, this is so incredibly close to what Fnatic was running in this lineup. The only difference is you're not going to have the same kind of damage from Kazakhs as you would before. In the time where Soaz ran it, he rushed a Brutalizer, he grabbed a Phage, he grabbed a Bloodthirster, and he was a super, super scary guy. We're going to get 2 seconds to get the runes here. Magic Resist, Move Speed, Magic Pen. So
I was just curious, because a couple of people do different Elises. I know Soaz, he does AD Elise, which is very effective against Bruiser's some Bruiser's top, but a number of other people do that quick Magic Pen build and go into, like haunting guys very early. And it seems he is going for that Magic Pen, but the movement speed, particularly for that roaming down from the top lane.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, I'm interested to see how these teams really work out, because you've got an interesting mix of things going on. So there's a couple of combos here. So Singapore Sentinels, you've got Lux and Blitzcrank. If you land a Light Binding, you get a free rocket grab. And then you look at the rest of this team and you're like, yeah, they'll dunk someone.
Yeah.
Right. You got Darius, Vayne, Kazakhs. They're all going to burst. You get a free isolated Q. You get a free dunk and apprehend. Whatever they pull, I mean, literally anything they pull is killable. Jungle Olaf is not a tanky man. Top lane Olaf's a tanky guy, but junglers don't get as much gold as top laners. They can pretty much just kill Lil Balls anytime they grab him. Even with his ultimate, they have good burst damage. They can really drop him low. And you look at the rest of this lineup and you're like, yeah, they can kill most things. The only thing they can't easily get, I think, is Stanley. As soon as they grab him, he'll rappel up into the air, and he's got like 3 seconds for his team to show up, or he's going to die. But his team can show up.
Oh, but SGS coming up, so TPA, they just back off for a second. It's interesting, though. We're kind of curious what TPA would play in this game. SGS has a lot of single target pickoffs, so definitely a really aggressive build to try and snowball quickly. But TPA going that more defensive route, and so opting not to take that Diana, who won them the game in the end, to a certain degree, but they fell behind early, and so they go with a defensive game plan, and then just plan to outplay SGS in the lanes. And so they're saying, okay, Stanley, you take equivocal top. The harass from Elise can be brutal in that top lane. Toys, he's going to be keeping an eye on the rest of the map and make sure that SGS doesn't pull any funny business and get ahead. But then allowing that bot lane as well. It's kind of isolated lanes, and see what you guys can do here.
I actually want to point out a couple of things that we saw SGS go in completely non sequitur, but they had Lux stand right behind Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank pulled. He timed the grab and just started Light Binding out. So if he did pull, he would land Light Binding and give 0 time for the opponent to flash. Now, the grab didn't hit anything. There was actually no one in that brush whatsoever. But that's the kind of coordination SGS is running, is they know, oh, here's a comp, and then they try to hit it. I did a hand motion, by the way. I'm not even on camera. That was good. But I like seeing that. Yeah,
it was a great. I'll tell you what. You were missing out on some fine hand motions.
They were good
from free. But look at this, SGS. They're doing the lane swap top, and so Darius, I guess maybe they're just here to control the blue for a second, or just make the decision, and they're going to send their lane down late. But Vayne, very strong in that 1v2. Same thing with Blitzcrank. Like, those are brutal champions. They're not, in the 1v2, you kind of make a decision. Do you want to push aggressively into the turret? In which case, you can go like Lulu and, aggressive pushing champions. Or do you want to get kills? And Blitzcrank and Vayne, they look to get kills. They look to zone their opponents and then just all of a sudden burst them down. And now they're coming in for the red as well. So really quick play. Blitzcrank and Kha'Zix, they're over there. And Lil Balls, he walks through a ward and he's walking the long way around. But they have him spotted out perfectly. So we'll see if they can respond. But, Karthus, he's not going to be that effectual up here. And they're going to be able to secure that.
He's not the best level 1 fighter. You can see Equivocal completely knows that he's like pretty much screwed in his lane, and he's just like taking the jungle down. He took 3 wraiths early on. He's now clearing out this double golem camp. He's actually, he's still running through the jungle. He's literally like not running into lane right now, and has level 2 purely from the jungle. LY4 and Hallelujah, they're trying to just deny Stanley as much as possible. And looks like they're going to meet up in the jungle a bit. Yeah, they have the ward there, and a pink ward from Mistake. So, he dropped it a little bit earlier ago, and the ward from Kha'Zix being spotted out. Chaw, he actually gets the binding onto Karthus, flashing over the wall to get away from Darkness. But now they actually have Little Balls and Mistake in particular caught out. But Darkness, he short arms the leap and can't get into him. So they're going to be able to retreat back into a safe position. Little Balls, and Mistake trying to make an aggressive play. Didn't pan out, but didn't set them behind. All right, but we still see that the gold is actually equal. Despite Equivocal literally not showing up in lane yet, he's still actually, the team in general has tied up in gold overall. And you're seeing this top lane be a little bit difficult for Stanley. LY4 is not going to have the easiest time fighting it in a 1 versus 1. But as long as Blitz shows up and puts on a little bit of pressure, you are still seeing Vayne come out ahead in minions. But you are going to want a little bit more pressure here from this Blitzcrank.
Yeah, and so that's a little surprising.
BB stole it.
That, wow. That is brutal in that bottom lane. You know that Equivocal can't be happy in that situation. What a steal from BB.
That is honestly super, super huge right here. And now you've got a lizard buffed freaking Misfortune trying to dunk on a Darius.
And if they hit the snare and he's outside of his turret, he's going to be just done.
He burns a flash, immediately if anything gets landed. And so, yep. Chawi still up in this mid lane. Toys, I gotta think, doesn't have much to worry about in this lane. I don't see him ever really getting killed off by Lux. What I could see happen is getting a combo in there with Darkness. If she can land the light binding, they can combo pretty well. It's likely he'll be isolated. It's likely to have some good burst damage. But generally speaking, I think Toys is happy to be here.
And now Hallelujah moving in, trying to get the pull, can't land it on Stanley. Lil Balls actually came up for a little bit to keep an eye on Stanley while he was a little bit off from his turret. Now, that it should push back. He knows he should be safe for a second and get back out of there. But it's pushing away from Stanley. He has that cannon minion still. So he's going to be zoned out of that lane. Might have to go into the jungle himself or, try something in order to keep up with farm, but definitely a tough situation for him up there. And it means that Vayne's free farming, though. She is a little bit behind MF right now, but there's a nice way for her to clear.
And it's going to be pretty easy overall. You can see BB really pushing down, and there's that gank we talked about. Lil Balls is right there. They're going to go in onto Equivocal. And you can see Mistake, he's staying very close by. He's going to try to go for that route. Equivocal will dodge to the side. There's a 3-on-1 happening. Mistake takes some turret shots. Now it's on the minions. Lil Balls, no, it's BB who pulls aggro. He pulls Lil Balls back in. The teleport coming in from Lux. Is they going to get anything? Chawi, is he going to land a binding? BB is low. No one looks like they're going to capitalize on anything. Losing Singularity spots Lil Balls, but nothing otherwise is happening here.
Really great play from TPA there.
Yeah.
They back off at the perfect time. And one of the interesting things about that situation is Mistake, if they wanted to all in for that kill, Mistake could have tanked another 2 tower shots off at the beginning. The Karthus ultimate trying to grab Darius. It's going to be enough. Wow, grabbing the first blood. But there's Olaf going down to Chai, and Mistake, Bebe chasing him down. They got the turret. Chai trying to throw up the laser, but he drops. The damage is just too high. So a turret going down and the laser. But Kha'Zix, he's coming down. He wants to grab Mistake. He has the vision there with the seedling, though.
Yeah, he put down the plant. It's going to be enough to stop Darkness from really moving in on this one. Nice vision given. They send Blitzcrank down, and there was that early turret kill that you really want from that 2-on-1 lane. You just saw how fast Zyra and BB together by 6 minutes took down that bottom turret, and I expect them now to lane swap back, make LY4's life a bit difficult, and give Stanley another easy lane.
But it's interesting, and I want to finish the thought. When they were going for that dive, Stanley, his lane was pushing away, which means they didn't have the opportunity for that level 3 gank, and Little Balls, he was right there to defend against it in case they did fast push into him, and then he went right down to bot and switched. They're actually going for Dragon now, and Karthus and Zyra are two of the strongest champions in the game at taking it. They're going to drop it very quickly, so much damage. But then the bot lane, when they went for their tower dive, if they wanted to full-on commit for it, Mistake probably would have taken some more tower shots to prevent as much damage going onto Lil Balls or Bebe. But because they recognized a TP was going to come in, they played it defensively right off of the beginning, even before the TP came in, because they knew that it was going to happen. There's the pull. Stanley actually jumps into his little web, and he's able to get out of there.
Yeah, just jumps immediately down to a minion to get, jumps back down, gets himself away as fast as he can. Last hitting under the turret as best he can. And the one thing I want to point out is this is release state Elise. We're on the initial Elise patch here on this tournament. Yeah. So this is before the AP ratio buffs, before Cocoon got faster. And that's the steal. Oh, Chawi, nice. That is huge right there. Denying that mana regeneration and cooldown reduction from Toys is going to leave his ultimate at a long cooldown, 192 seconds, 3 minutes between Requiems, and it's going to stay that way. That's really big. They need to make sure that Toys can't put on that much pressure on the map.
Yeah, and Chawi's really going to be looking for some early aggression. You know, he's actually roaming now, and the sieging potential for Lux is very strong, as well as the defensive potential. But the fact that he can just so quickly AoE clear a wave, and then go and try and help out in the jungle or something like that, can be really strong. But the lane swap happens again. Stanley, he's going to be comfortable down in that bottom lane. He actually has 3 Doran's shields, so that is just devastating for Darius to go against. Not only that, but he has a level advantage too, a 2-level advantage versus Darius. So not only do they know they're comfortable in this top lane, look, they have a level advantage there too, 7-6, 5-4. So they have advantages in both their top and bot lane now because of those earlier plays and the perfect timing for the swap.
The story of every lane here really is like a 10% advantage everywhere. You mentioned the experience advantage they're trying to catch up on right here. You look at the minion kills, 44 to 28, 72 to 63 in the mid lane, 71 to 69 on the bottom, even 3 to 2 on the supports. I mean, man, 50% bonus minions on the support is huge. And aside from the jungle right there, that's just only 5 up. You're just seeing everyone on TPA slightly ahead and doing a good job of that.
Yeah, it's a really great situation, and it means that Darius could fall further and further behind. And that's, kind of scary. Darius needs to be at a nice advantage early on. Stanley just chasing him down, and he saw that Kha'Zix was mid, which actually gives him free roam to just chase down Equivocal here. He might want to get out a little bit shortly now. Equivocal actually flashing out, and Stanley has to deal with Kha'Zix and Lux, but he should be able to retreat, and Lux still trying to chase him down, but he's going to be able to back to his lane, and you just saw, he's going to completely shut down Darius in this game. And if Darius can't get any early tanking items or early damage or whatnot, then, what is he going to be doing in those fights?
Well, and this is really the thing that matters the most about killing turrets and a dragon is when you go to 1v2 lane, right, both those solo laners are a bit denied. And honestly, when Darius came back into lane, they were within 6 minions of each other, both pretty low. Oh, the pull and a mistake first. That's going to do so much damage. Trying to pick it up. Silver Bolt's going to land. Oh, he flashes out of it. And the Requie's going to get them so low. One goes down. LY4 left alone. Can he find Mistake?
Oh, he wants some.
He's fine. Oh, he misses the seed. That would have been the kill with the Vine Lasher.
Oh, he was right around the wall. He wasn't actually able to get it, but Bebe has the movement speed advantage. He gets the vision off the seed. There's the kill. They take them both down, and it was the lack of vision. We saw earlier on in the game how much vision they had, but Lux coming up, maybe going to try for Mistake. Backs off, doesn't have the vision to grab him, but earlier on in the game, SGS had great vision against TPA, and in the first game as well, but lacking that vision now, it's allowed Lil Balls to put pressure on the bottom lane, and then it's allowed him to come right up that river to the top lane without them even being aware of him.
Exactly. So I want to talk again, though, about what the early turret kill and early dragon kill did for TPA Assassins, and specifically for Stanley. Now, you're now seeing a very big minion difference. You're seeing 1,000 gold between the two, but notice that they're both very, very poor, right? 1,800 gold is rather low overall. When you give everyone on your team 190 gold for a dragon, 150 gold for a turret, that's more than 10%. That's basically 20% of your gold came from global objectives. Being up 20% gold on your lane opponent, that's the extra Doran's shield. That's the extra potion, the extra little bit of experience from, all that. Like, that's why he's able to win lane and snowball ahead, because he got this huge advantage for himself. And the thing is, the way everyone is playing Elise right here is, I guess I shouldn't say everyone, but one of the primary ways people play Elise is relying on those base damages. It's getting a lot of magic penetration and basically tank stats, because your base damages are very, very high. And that's why Stanley can go triple Doran's shield, make sure he'll never die to his opponent, grab a Philosopher's Stone even, and just tank it out. And
that goes to Stanley's playstyle as well, because he, just likes to build to win that lane, and then know he's going to be safe, and then leave the lane. But that's exactly right. We've seen haunting guys into like Sunfire Cape. So just start off with the AP and then completely switch off it in the past on Elise.
It's like Malphite.
Huh?
It's like a Malphite
right.
build.
Yeah.
Where you Sunfire Cape and Magic Pen.
And you're so tanky, but you're right. The base damage is so high, and then it's the fact that you can penetrate the back line. So
Yes.
Elise almost plays as an assassin.
It is
in those team fights, and that's gonna be really dangerous for Life 4, particularly when he's not at the same level he was in the previous game and already struggled. He's still doing well. He's farming very effectively at 100 CS, but that's because of the 1v2. But you compare him with Misfortune at 3-0, and there's still a bit of a gap there. And look, Stanley 1v2 harassing down Life 4 there.
And that's the difficulty, that's how Blitzcrank works, is all he can do is all-in.
Yeah.
That's the only method of fighting he has. And when you deny the all-in by being stronger fighters, you've kind of removed everything that Blitzcrank can do. Now, the hook! No, that's what that's about. Look at the combo!
Oh man, the pickoffs from SGS, that is exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah, I was about to say I didn't get it in time, but that's still why you pick Blitzcrank. Is
if Charlie had gotten that second blue again, that would have been insane.
Completely blind too, and now BB flashes over the wall. He's gonna find Chowie a lot of damage, but the shield from Chowie is perfect because it'll shield on the way out, it shields on the way back in, and then they're in really good shape.
Without that shield, he was done.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that was really aggressive from Bebe. He knew the team was there, but no fear diving in and then using his ult there.
They've Requiem up. He's gonna cast it. The shield is gonna be up again. He gets it out in time.
Oh,
and
just
it does
not
make him
enough.
live.
The shields once again from Chai protecting him there, but they will be forced off this turret. This might result or should result in a turret for TPA. Usually Lux can stall, but when she's this low, it's gonna be dangerous.
Oh, they're gonna push on forward. There we go. The wave clear coming out, but Toy's gonna flash on forward. He finds Hallelujah. That one picked up. Exhaust burn equivocal.
Oh, and dodging perfectly. He backed up at the last second, but Stanley jumping in, but there's the step against the wall. Stanley goes down. Down goes the spider, and he does have to back off. The burst is insane from SGS, but TPA, they're bullying down that second turret now, and SGS just backed, which means that turret is going to drop.
And this is crazy because you consider so many things on both sides. So TPA Assassins has amazing late game support. Zyra will actually scale. You'll have, of course, a Karthus being amazing, and honestly, you're seeing some early gold generation come out from the jungler and the top laner, so they're going to actually just out-farm in general that way as well. The difficulty, though, is Singapore Sentinels, they actually want to get into the late game situations. They actually want to get to the point where they can use Rocket Grab, because they're only just now able to really use Blitzcrank to his fullest. And so Singapore Sentinels kind of wants this sort of like mid-late game situation.
Oh, he's got Bebe.
He's going to try to find BB. He's going to get one more slow available. That's really going to drop him down. Light Binding. Yeah, that's going to be everything they needed. There you go. The burst coming out. 4 to 5 on kills. It's weird. TPA, I think they need to keep pushing because these situations are very scary for them.
Well, a little arrogant from Bebe there. They were able to get the dragon as well, pull a massive gold lead. Now SGS is going to get the turret from this, and TPA, normally you would think they're going to respond by taking something, but they don't have any opportunities. But there's the Zyra snare. Hallelujah, he just walks right back into him because he knows he is done. But Lil Balls, he's trying to force a fight here, and he's very close to being able to chase them down. If he lands that, it would be able to be enough. But if Stanley lands a stun here, that could be it.
Comes out. Oh, he's trying to get them to dodge. He hits Life 4. Now can they get the undertow? That's been hit. No, he's going to flash. That will get him away, but the flash burn is pretty worth it.
Yeah, and the Lux trying to burst down Mistake in the back line.
Oh my gosh!
The E. Oh my gosh! The perfect play from Choi. But even so, even with these kills, TPA, they're bullying around SGS right now. But, give it a couple more, maybe it's a different story. So TPA has to watch out. It's a 8K gold lead. I mean, they are just massively ahead. But if they keep on allowing SGS to get these pickoffs, that could be kind of scary.
And I think honestly, this team is what it's about. This team is picking people off and getting that one first kill. And the great thing about 4 versus 5 is almost no matter how farm the other team is, 5 versus 4 is generally going to be a win. Until they can get Guardian Angel or Azonias on the relevant champions to deny that kind of gameplay, this will always be the fear for them. Turrets will be harder and harder to kill. What TPA needs is to somehow catch someone out to make a 5v4 of their own and kill a turret, or kill a dragon, or kill Baron. They need to cement themselves so far ahead that they can get those big ticket items. and I really believe like SGS can keep making those plays and get those pickoffs. You're seeing the build from Chowie. He's rushing Death Cap not Athene's Unholy Grail. He's going to be bursty. People will fall very, very fast in this game.
Oh, but Bebe down in the bottom lane. Darius might actually engage on him, though. I don't know if that would be the best decision. So he actually just lets him back off. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Bebe would be able to win that one. Darius is way behind, but Mistake and Lil Ball's coming in behind him. We'll try and cut him off, and he backs off just in time. But now they're splitting all the lanes, and this is something that they've done very well so far this game, is rather than forcing those fights constantly, and grouping up, they're splitting lanes and looking for opportunities, to win these smaller engages, and it's been working out perfectly for them.
Yeah, and here they go. They're going to keep the pressure on by moving towards that bottom lane. Stanley, like Stanley does,
Lux.
He split pushes. Yeah.
I mean, against Lux, if they just pile down one lane, Choi,
he could dive and
he'll stall all day. There's that would be no big deal for him there. But
no, I think he could just dive. I mean, I guess he's not super tanky, but Choi has to land a crowd control to not die in just a barrage.
But I mean, if they were all grouping up mid,
yeah, sorry.
If they're all grouping up mid, then Choi's going to stall forever.
Yeah, there we go. The pull happens on Lil Balls, but it's a one guy who can escape that situation.
Oh, and the teleport, he uses it and then cancels it. So it's going to be a shorter cooldown, but
yep.
Choi, kind of baited there, thinking there's going to be a fight, and then off. So that's going to weaken them a little bit. And now Stanley, he's actually run right past Choi. He ran around the backside where they don't have vision, and he's coming down bottom, so they're going to be able to push them away from that bot turret. Stanley might even just force that mid himself.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely going to make Choi react to him and bend to his will every single time. And heck, at the very worst, it's free farm for Stanley. He could run back top lane and then farm this way if he really wants to.
And that's the transitioning that we see from TPA a lot of times. Rather than just leaving Stanley up in that top lane constantly, they like to move where they're always going to be in a situation that they can respond to fights. So if a fight breaks out down bottom, Stanley can make his way down there, or if he likes, he can go up top and farm, and he's going to really pull ahead from the ability to farm those two lanes. But TPA pushing that bot. It is actually a 4v5. Hallelujah! He forces the flash and the hook. They're trying to chase them down.
And they're trying to get some damage on their card. They're picking up the early double kill, though. He's showing up Darkness. He will fall down. The damage so immense from Chowi, but they just can't capitalize quite on it. Stanley gonna take some damage. Mistakenly shoots. Oh, there's the stun. So much pain going off. Trying to keep Life 4 alive. There's the card. This ult. It's gonna put on a lot of punishment. Yes, that is his third kill of the fight. BB dodges the light binding, and they picked up a 4 for 0 there.
And all of them backing off at the perfect timing. Lux did a lot of damage when they were all clumped up, but they had already destroyed SGS's team. And then Stanley forcing them to stay, rather than allowing them to leave, knowing that he would lose that 1v2 himself, but it set up the rest of his team to pick up another kill and then grab that turret very easily. So that's moved it into a 12k gold lead for SGS, and it's really just been phenomenal play from them this game. But you saw, compared with the last game, they, rather than bringing the fight to SGS, they made SGS fight them early on, and now, once they had the goal lead, then they started bringing on the pain. Then they started, pushing them down and just bullying them and not allowing SGS to have an opportunity to farm or get back in this game.
And so the huge thing here is that SGS, less and less and less can rely on actual team fights. They need one thing and one thing only, and it's getting a random pick out. They get a lot onto Lil Balls. They forced him to burn his ult, but that's the problem. They don't have a lot of easy free picks. They get Lil Balls and he ults, and his cooldowns, they're not that high. You look, and it's only a minute and a half. Well, it's not that long.
Their only damage right now is Choi.
Yeah.
So that's a serious concern when your only damage is coming out of an AP carry, particularly one that doesn't have high sustain damage. Lux is burst, but then you're cooldown dependent. And Vayne, on the other hand, you compare Vayne with Misfortune, and oh my god, what a disadvantage they're at right there. But the stun coming up, the snare from Stanley trying to grab him, as well as the Karthus wall, they zone them off, and they have taken control of this top jungle.
One thing that helps Singapore Sentinels, though, is they actually have good disengage this time. Darkness evolved Void Spike, so he gets a slow with it, and you've got all the abilities as well from Lux. But Hallelujah repeatedly gets caught over and over. He just drops immediately. 4 members of the enemy team making that one happen. Lux almost the combo on the other side of the wall. But this is not good. Hallelujah has 5 deaths. He's almost half of his team's deaths overall, and that's really brutal for him.
And the concern now is, even with the disengage that they have, and Lux is very strong. That's very similar to Nivea. TPA doesn't have to fight them. They can just bully them off the turrets and then take the turrets at this point because they're so far ahead. The snare, it hits though. Bebe gets some quick damage and then dodges actually backwards a little bit. He does get the binding, but there's the AoE. They don't pick up any kills, but they're very safe and they force them back. Bebe almost dropping. At Darkness, he's coming in. He wants to get this, the W, not enough to grab it, but they are going to be able to grab this tower and then try and get out. SGS though, they want to force this.
Yeah, they're going to keep trying to go in for the damage. They've got people low enough. They know BB's been forced out. And without his ult, he cannot contribute from afar either. They drop wards on the other side. Looks like no one's going to quite go in. Stanley chancing out a stun there, trying to make sure no one can quite chase out. That's not going to be the case here. Now we can see what they're up to here. 5-11. The game, much less close than last time. I really feel that no matter what happens, Singapore Sentinels always has the chance of pulling it back because their team can just one-shot somebody and make it a 5 versus 4. But it's a 12,000 gold lead. And
that's the concern with the 12,000 gold lead. It means that TPA is about to start itemizing defensive items. Bebe running top, almost getting picked off there by Hallelujah, but he had vision of him, so he backs off. But with this gold lead, they're done with their offense for now. Or Karthus will still finish their Rabadons, but you see Bebe, he already has so much damage. Now he can transition into defense where Lux isn't going to be as much of a threat for him.
And oh my gosh, Hallelujah dropped the half. BB shows up as well, and this poor Blitzcrank. Beep boop, you are still going to go down. I'm sorry, but your servos and your motors are going to turn off for now.
He's a little out of order. They didn't have the spare parts back in the factory, but he's going to back off. And
we can rebuild him. Yeah. Better than before.
Better than the original, stronger, faster. Stanley 2.0. But now, it's interesting. TPA, they have a team that is actually incredibly strong at taking objectives like Baron and such, but because they have such a gold lead, they don't need to force those objectives. Like you said earlier, when they're this far ahead, the risk of losing that to like a Lux, ult or something like that isn't worth it. But it's a team that, had the opportunity for that if, maybe this game was a little bit closer. But and they actually maybe they're going to group it now and bait it because
the thing
Little Balls is tanky enough to tank in. They have the Stanley spiders, they have the seedlings and everything to tank for them as well.
Yeah, Olaf is one of the better killers of neutral objectives because he can undertow into Smite, and that will out-damage it. You can see Smite's going to deal 695. The Reckless Swing is for 220. So, he's going to get about 800 true damage. 800,
wow.
900. Yeah, that was really close to a mistake. But he's got 900 true damage. Chawi, he doesn't deal quite that much with his ultimate. So, as long as Little Balls is paying attention, he can always last hit that and make sure it doesn't get stolen.
They're comfortable. They're just going to force this fight. And, with those seedlings, with the spiders as well, they drop it very, very quickly. Karthus as well, there's the Lux's ult, but it can't do it. And now they can maybe force a fight. They have the AoE, and there's the pull over the wall into Bebe.
Oh, he misses the pull. That's not great. He's going to try to dunk anyway. That kill will be his, but at what cost? The Requiem comes down. How many will fall? Looks like it's 2 so far, 3 so far. Darkness has nowhere to run. He's going to drop. And only Hallelujah is left alive.
Oh, but there's the teleport down into the bottom lane from Toys. He's going to just push this tower very quickly, and at what cost? Cost indeed. They had that Baron. Now they're going to be able to get an inhibitor off of this very easily, and that's going to allow them to control this map just to such a great extent where they can just slowly push in, and it really... that completely shuts down pickoff potential. When you have an inhibitor, it means you can chase them down, but the slow Hallelujah being chased down by Toys, he gets the damage, there's the ace. And now with those minions pushing in, they don't have to risk getting in range of Blitz or Lux or anything like that to kill them, because they can just, pressure them with the lane pushes.
And this is going to be just them controlling over and over and over again. They've got kind of every move was made properly. A little bit of a mistake in killing BB in time, but the difficulty was even with someone caught out like that, he's very, very high level, and everyone else is able to very quickly counterattack. You saw how much damage Toys could put out there on Karthus.
And all of the effort went into killing Baby.
Yeah, and they had nothing left.
Everything on
Exactly. And so there's not a lot of options left open for Singapore Sentinels. At least for their sake, there's no major objectives left on the map to farm more gold from.
Yeah.
But all they can try to do right now is farm desperately on their double dead inhibitors. The minions will keep flooding in. They will just throw gold at Singapore Sentinels.
Caught out once again. Kazak's trying to chase him down, just not quite in range. He doesn't have the flash to follow up on that. So Bebe, he is safe still. I mean, Misfortune has great movement speed, and with that Phantom Dancer as well. But that would be scary if they lose someone here. Then maybe that stalls SGS into an opportunity.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah. So Taipei Assassins will not try to dive in on a 4v5. Like a known 4v5, they will not pick that fight. And always, literally always, you can't count a game out. You've got Lux and Blitzcrank who will kill things from screen away and make them die. That is always, no matter what is happening, there's always a potential here for Singapore Sentinels. Like, I really can't stress this enough, and it's actually true. No matter what the gold deficit, that is literally always an option here. So, Now TPA can play it right and always be out of range. You can see there was zero chance of mistaking. BB took that damage. They were too far back. No dodging required. They can make sure Lil Ball's in front. They can let them pull him. Then he'll just ult and start the fight. And that's okay too, to be honest. They can start the fight with a couple hundred damage dealt early on. But if the wrong target gets pulled, that's deadly.
Yeah, and that turret's really close to going down. They do drop it. Olaf, he's just pushing right in at the Nexus turrets with the minions there. There's actually the bind equivocal. He is going to drop, but flashes out of there. The Zyra ult's still going to be too much for him, and they pick up that kill. It's now a 4v5, and Lil Balls, he's actually in their base right now, still just, pressuring them underneath that Nexus.
And he's going to be happy to. At this point, it's a 5v4. The winning team's got the numbers. They're waiting for one last minion wave to spawn for the top wave and come on down. You can see BB is waiting around for it. The rest of the team surrounding it to keep SGS out of position, unable to defend that structure. That's going to be the case here. And you can see them just crushing all the structures. There's very few buildings left on the map. I don't think they really want to engage a fight. I think they're happy to let minions flood in and help them crush the base down here.
Yeah, and so they with the 3 inhibitors down, that is basically going to be it. It's just a matter of, whether they can stall this one push or the next one. But TPA, they're going to be safe in that back line. There's the bind going off the Lux laser, but not doing enough. Hallelujah, he's going to go down, though. And there's the engage from Toys, trying to take him out under this Nexus. And the AoE from Bebe is just forcing him back for TPA to grab this Nexus and then end this. So that's going to be 2-0 for TPA over SGS. In a really impressive series, and they move on through this losers bracket.
That's going to be, just great overall. Perfect play. Taipei Assassins, this game looking much better than the previous one. This looks like the Taipei Assassins in the first half of game 1 as well. This looks like the Taipei Assassins that won the World Championship. A lot more like it at the very least. Again, it was shaky. They dropped down the lower bracket. We weren't completely sure about them. Turns out we might want to be sure about them again. They're looking great right now. They're moving on. They're moving forward. And they're, of course, as threatening as always.
And a lot of it was more responsive play in this game. So not allowing themselves to get caught off early on, which is what Fnatic had taken advantage of, and which is what SGS had taken advantage of in game number 1. So they pull it back rather than picking up that Diana, and it really worked out well for them. Elise is very scary, though. You saw the only damage item he had in that game was Haunting Guys. He went Haunting Guys into Shirelia's NGA. Yeah. So, the Shirelia's, it gives him that mobility to join with his team, and he can just, run in real quick, dive on the back line, and force fights where his top laner is potentially out of position later on. And then, he's just tanking, and he has that base damage, like you had said.
Sure, and I dislike how Singapore Sentinels played that early lane. They sent Blitzcrank around. I mean, it was cool that they stole away the Lizard buff, and that was nice and all that. But they kind of stopped putting pressure on him. You saw how bad Darius's lane was. He basically, half of his early minion kills were all from the jungle. When he was at like 12, he got 5 to 7 of them from clearing out his jungle himself, which means he was just completely shut out of lane. Meanwhile, you saw Elise got to 1v1 against Vayne.
Right.
And so she actually more or less kept up in items.
Yeah.
And was actually having a very good time in lane, got experience. You mentioned the 2-level disparity between Darius and Elise because she's allowed to be there and in lane and not zoned out. Because Vayne by herself is not going to zone out Elise by any means. And so Hallelujah had no impact early on Blitzcrank. He didn't make that 2v1 do anything. And so when the lane swaps happened back, right? Misfortune, was actually there with Zyra. They pushed down the turret. They actually, made that dive happen bottom lane. Then they switched back, and you've got a huge disparity between those two bottom laners now, between Elise and between, I'm blanking on the champion named Darius, right?
Yeah, right.
And Elise is just dunking him from there, right? Triple Thorn Shield just goes in at level 6.
Once she head vision of the enemy jungler, boom, just dive in, try and get a kill there.
Yep.
And it was interesting, some of the manipulation from Little Balls and from TPA in that game right at the very beginning when they first pulled ahead that lead. Little Balls, the 2v1 lane behind the tower gank around the 4-minute mark is like one of the most common things. You push into the turret, they're still waiting for the minions to come. They're like, oh, look, I get all this farm. And then you sneak around and kill them, and they fall way behind. So Lil Balls, he comes up. He stays just long enough for Stanley to push the minions off of his turret. So the lane gets momentum. It's pushing away from, which is going to deny him farm. But it means that he's safe because he doesn't have to be fighting them. And then Little Balls, he gets to do that and then make his way down bot, and he hits the perfect timing to be bot for his gank when the minions are hitting the turret. And so it was great timing. Then they anticipated the teleport and, back off. They still destroyed Darius, but they dispersed. And they were able to take advantage of that bottom lane, take the turret, get the dragon not that long after it with a really strong objective comp. And, put a lot of pressure in that way on TPA.
Yeah, and the funny thing was it was such a similar situation to that like ill-fated top lane game against Fnatic where Xpeka picks up a triple kill. And you know, you compare the differences there, and it's like the jungler was there, Xpeka was there on time, like before the kills really happened. They were actually forced to be on the turret for the kill themselves because you know everyone who was
they
diving,
dove and made sure they got it.
Yeah.
As opposed to this game,
they dove really hard instead of you know, Mistake picked up turret aggro. It was okay, 1-2 out of range. Okay, we'll go in all at once.
Right.
And they were able to like dance the turret aggro so much better there. And they just felt safer in a way that they were able to disperse, and it didn't matter that had to run down or run to the right or run up. They all got out very, very cleanly. There's nothing there available to them. And I don't know if it was just like a better orchestrated gank in general, or if it was just like a little bit less forced, or they got a better surround. Because I know in the prior one, right, they burned a Twisted Fate ultimate, and he was in like, you know, down to the bottom behind the turret, super out of position, and that helped, you know, capitalize on this one. This one felt a lot more structured, and they felt a little bit less rushed for it, and it worked out really, really well.
Yeah, it really was some impressive play from TPA, and it's going to be interesting. I mean, TPA, M5, and Azubu, all in the losers bracket, all trying to make their way back. That is an intense losers bracket, and you know it's coming down to the wire. You know, we have just the most insane teams left: CLG, NA, and Fnatic in the winners bracket. Curse EU and Curse NA. You know, we don't know what's going on with that game, but that should be pretty interesting. CLG EU and World Elite, they get to continue their uber long series from the World Championship. I'm pretty sure it just is running back here, so it's like
it's now a best
60
of 5
long series.
Yeah.
But just really cool. A lot of impressive teams still left.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's going to be awesome to see how some of these teams perform in the tournament.
And I like as well that we have teams showing up that are performing better than you would have expected.
Yeah.
Right. Like you come into this and you're like, okay, well, it's Type A Assassins and I think not a lot of people actually counted in WE. A lot of people who are like kind of in the scene and in the know, like we knew WE was really, really good, but you
there
saw
was
them.
The question of, well, why did they lose to CLGU at the World Championships?
They won a single game.
Yeah.
At the World Championships, and no team can be like, well, we went 1 and 2 in the World Championships, can like claim that they are necessarily awesome. Okay, they won in China, they're obviously the top team there, but relatively unproven, and people don't see them a lot outside of China. And so WE showing up like, guys, they're definitely really good, right? They won their group, they took out Fnatic, they've had a great showing so far. They 2-0 to M5, which is crazy. M5 suddenly, right? They're another really top pick. Well, they're looking a little bit shaken because this competition is so much better. Fnatic, I don't think anyone would have predicted Fnatic.
No, of course not.
I mean, they're a potential top 3 here, and I also want to talk about like Counterlogic Gaming Prime. Right? They got 4th place at MLG Dallas. They beat out all the American teams, but I think we've kind of seen for a while the American teams haven't been up to par here. Well, here's CLG Prime. They beat Curse Europe, who won Tails of the Lane, beating M5 BenQ. They're up against Fnatic, who right now are looking like the best team in Europe.
Right.
If they win that, you play the commutative property of inequality, and it's like, well, Fnatic beat TPA. If CLG beats TPA, is CLG the best team in the world? Like, you've suddenly got these like grand ramifications of like these best of 3s that are like, wait, is the scene close again? Are Americans suddenly good?
Does
that's a potential here.
USA again?
Yeah. Well, they're still chanting for TSM who are out.
Or chant for Canada.
Chant for Canada.
Oh, Canada. Yeah.
Well, as far as there's actually no majority there. There's you've got 2 Canadians, 2 Americans, and a Korean guy.
Right. But it's wild because the tournament. We're seeing all these, really impressive play, and it's an international scene. It's not one dominant territory. It really is across the board. But this tournament is almost the tournament of the 80 carries. That's where you look at it, and there's just so much diversity being played in 80s. But all of the teams that are left have arguably the best 80 carries in the world. You look at Captain Jack. You look at Double Lift, Wei Zhao, Bei, Genja. All these powerful players, every single team. And it's about, the early game positioning. All these teams are doing a fantastic job early game. It's not that same passive play where you just sit back and farm that we had seen in the past. They're controlling the map, getting their AD carry in a situation, and then it's, their time to shine. And that's what the key of the games has been. It's been really cool to watch.
Yeah, and you're right. It has been kind of centered around them for whatever reason. And a lot of it is that people are like hardcore respect banning the mid laners.
Yeah.
Except the one time they didn't ban TF from Messiah. then
Right.
that was a mistake. But like, except for the one game from X-Pekka,
And
that
when
was
they
like a hard
haven't
carry.
hardcore banned the mid players, then the mid players have been dominating the games and ending it too soon. And we've seen that in a number of matches as well.
And then you even get the occasional top laner victory where like Dyrus was like the only person keeping TSM alive against
Right.
Blaze, and he put on a good show. It was a good try, but unfortunately, you saw Captain Jack just be brutal
Right.
on Corki, and then that kind of turned around. But you're right. You're seeing a lot of things at play here. The underdogs coming up and doing really, really well. You're seeing all stars like. We had like 4 pentakills this tournament so far.
Yeah, what's the statistic, Freak? Is it like 1 in every 1,000 games is supposed to have a pentakill?
Yeah, something
I've
like
had
that.
1 pentakill my entire time playing a League of
Aw.
Legends, and I've been playing since beta. I've
I
had a
like-
lot of stolen pentakills,
It's fair.
so I'll take some credit there. But
I stole one like a week ago.
these teams are just insane. They're awesome, and it's part of the reason that we're seeing all these pentakills, I think, is because a lot of the team fights are very well coordinated from these teams. And when you get into this high level of team fights, when you look at low level pentakills, you're like, okay, when you have a team that's stomping another team, it's just because the guy's really strong and he just chases them down and kills them. In these situations, that's not what's happening. What's happening is both teams, they're not allowing people to get picked off. They're cycling their members very well. So both teams are slowly getting very low, and they're just these protracted fights. Both teams are slowly getting low rather than anyone dying early. And then all of a sudden, you see that burst, and someone's just like, all right, now that they're low enough, I'm going in. Red 5 standing by, I've got this. And they dive in, and that's what we see with Master Yi on Moscow 5. They, slow down those fights. They cycle out their members, don't allow anyone to die until the enemy team is low enough. And then Alex Ich goes in and he gets those kills. That's what we've seen in the past with Ezreal's, being very safe and kiting very effectively, using that mobility, and then just constantly dealing damage. And then all of a sudden you see like a shift and they turn around for those kills.
Yeah, and playing your champion perfectly and optimizing every little bit. We harped on it a little bit after game 1. Vayne refusing to kind of land auto attacks as she ran away. So it's a relevant skill. You've got to pull out every little bit you can in all these fights, because you've got the best players in the world, and they're already doing everything they can to get ahead of you. You've got to pull out every stop possible. Your positioning is so important because they'll catch you if you're catchable, and they'll jump on you if you're the guy to jump on. People are saving their ultimates because they know. Like I was watching Fear against
Me Playground?
No, it was before me. It was group stage.
Okay, yeah.
And Afromu was on Twitch, and the enemy Malphite just saves it. He saves it and refuses to go onto him until he shows up in the fight.
Well, and that's part of that is, you talk about those 80 carries and the positioning, and that's something that Afromu's, kind of struggled with to a certain extent. He's an incredibly strong 80 carry, but he has kind of 2 modes. One where he sits back and then he kind of decides, all right, now it's my time to go in, and maybe gets himself a little bit out of position. And so holding on to that ultimate, it allows him to shut down that Twitch very effectively. And that's something that we'll see further and further in the tournament is people sitting back, being a little bit more reserved, and waiting until that one chance where they can grab that 80 carry.
And it's them knowing his job. Malphite can run in the front line and throw seismic shards and deal damage, whatever. But he knows that like his role on the team is we have to make sure Twitch doesn't kill us. And that I'll see a lot of players will just go into the fight and be like, all right, press the buttons, go kill things, right? But I've seen so much good execution. We saw it was WE when they had Amumu and Sona together, where they landed Curse of the Sad Mummy, and then Sona would wait until it timed out and then immediately hit crescendo again and make sure that they couldn't escape and that they weren't wasting any of the timer on the cooldowns or on the crowd control.
One of my favorite fights of the tournament so far. We've seen a lot of really cool fights, but just as far as like team skill and watching team coordination, excuse me, it was Fnatic versus World Elite in the group stage. There was a fight where Wei Xiao was caught out of position, and I think I've told you this because I've just been like running around telling everyone.
No, it's fine. It's great.
I'm like, oh man, guys.
Oh yeah.
But Wei Xiao was caught out of position, and you think, oh my God, he's going to die. Everyone immediately dove on top of him, and they were all clumped up, and his team perfectly, swap in and, get right into position. Sona hits a crescendo across 4 members of the team, and then Wei Xiao, he short arms his Valkyrie. So rather than just like completely getting the hell out of there, he only goes back a tiny little fraction of the Valkyrie length because he knows his team was in position to protect him at that point. And they held the front line, and then he just mowed them down. And it was a very cool fight. And we're seeing some awesome play from a lot of these teams. We saw some really cool play in that match. SGS, they, had a lot of great things going for them. They're definitely a contending team, but TPA a little bit too much for them right now. I'll give a quick shout